Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast. Today, I have with me Steven Jarvis. Steven is another CPA, and he's with RTS, Retirement Tax Services. They help financial advisors get better at doing tax planning for their own clients. He aims to bridge the gap between tax professionals, financial advisors, and their mutual clients to help reduce people's largest expense in retirement, which is taxes. With over 10 years of experience in top accounting firms and partnering with some of the most successful financial advisors in the industry, Steven is uniquely positioned to help financial advisors deliver massive value to their clients and stay between the lines on compliance, which is so important. And his valuable skill of distilling endless pages of IRS tax code and case law into easy to explain, easier to implement, actionable items that financial advisors can use with their clients today. So thank you for joining me today, Steven. So excited to have you on the show. So we kind of have an interesting overlap where my firm specializes in the tax planning for advisors themselves. But a lot of the times the questions that I get back from our clients are related to doing tax planning for their clients. And it's something that more and more firms are getting interested in. There's like a new program out from the American College of Planning for tax education for advisors. And it's something that's continuing to grow, as I'm sure we're both seeing the same trend of a lot of tax professionals are extremely overwhelmed and just not in the weeds enough with the client situations a lot of the time to be able to do pretty good planning, or there isn't the willingness there. And so from conversations I hear from advisors, they're realizing that this is a great place for them to add value, and they're already in there in terms of doing regular planning. So being able to dovetail the tax planning on top of it can be really complementary. So just general topics for planners. So for planners that are looking to start implementing more tax planning into their firms, where are the places that you recommend they start, the tools that they, try to get access to? Like how do you dip your toe into tax planning?
Yeah, Catherine, totally agree that we're seeing a lot of this going on in the industry, that there's definitely a lot of need for it, a lot of interest in it, and maybe not always a lot of clarity on how to go about it. So the first thing I tell advisors constantly is you need to be getting tax returns for all of your clients every single year, because we have to start with real data, right? We wouldn't be doing financial planning or investment management or any of these other things without the real statements, without the real numbers behind it. So don't guess at tax planning, get the tax returns. The other thing that I try to make sure that advisors understand is whether they're being intentional or not, they are doing tax planning. Every money movement, every money decision has a tax impact. And so you're either being intentional about it or you're being negligent about it. Like those are kind of the options here. And so getting tax returns so that you can start seeing what is most relevant to your clients. Because as you know, the tax code some 80,000 pages long, whatever the number is, that's the number that sticks out in my mind. No one's going to learn all of that. I don't know all of it. You don't know all of it. And the great news is nobody needs to learn all of it. And so for advisors who want to do tax planning for their clients, getting tax returns is the best way to really narrow in on what do I need to focus on learning for my clients. And you're absolutely right. There's starting to be more resources out there. What they're doing at the American College is great as far as a formal course for that. We started Retirement Tax Services 3 years ago now, a little over 3 years ago, to help advisors be able to learn more on their own of how they can work with clients, how to develop that education understanding. And then we also partner alongside advisors where our team is doing the hands-on tax preparation and tax planning, to really, to your point of, there's so many professionals in the tax world who are aging out of the profession, who are retiring, who are just not interested in taking on more clients, because you can find industry reports that reinforce this and put some pretty daunting numbers behind it of how quickly the rate of people getting into accounting is declining. And so this problem isn't going to get better. And so that's why we spend our time partnering alongside advisors, because I could go say yes to as many 1040s as I want to all day long. But really what I want to do is be able to work alongside someone who is looking at the rest of a client's financial picture so that I can focus on the tax piece and I can be the expert in that area.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think something that I get when I talk to advisors who are interested in doing this, the attitude that most commonly comes up is, I'm going to do the tax planning, but then I have to get a blessing from the tax professional. And a lot of the frustration that I hear from advisors is they aren't able to have that collaborative of a relationship with the tax professional to get a blessing on doing basic things like Roth conversions or just timing of distributions. Like, those very simple, like in my mind, like simple tax planning maneuvers, being able to get collaborative support. I'm seeing more of a trend too of advisors wanting to bring like tax preparation into their practices. So I'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts are for advisors in terms of, okay, I want to start doing more intentional tax planning. Because, like you said, and this is something I'd emphasize to people on my side too, of just everything you do is either you're in the tax game. So it's having some kind of impact. It's just whether or not you're aware of it at the time, or if you're going to wait until the scorecard at the end of the year with the tax return to find out what happened, right? It's like we know the rules in the midst of the game most of the time. It's, we're coming on an election year and it's going to be a little goofy. But, for the most part, we know how things are going to play out in terms of the tax impact. So if you have advisors that they want to start doing this more proactively, self-educating themselves on specific client scenarios. Like if you have a niche firm and you're dealing with the same issues over and over again, you can learn planning techniques related to those. But in terms of like, how do you go about really executing this within your practice? Like, do you recommend people bring in a tax professional internally to help with this, or making sure that you have that collaboration with the outside tax professional, dialed in before you start offering this? Like, in terms of like practical advice that you have for people that are trying to add this, what are your best tips for implementing it?
Yes, I think this goes in a couple of stages. I think every advisor needs to be committed to increasing their own tax knowledge and understanding. That's regardless of how great the professional you collaborate with is or not. Because I've seen firms, I've been in firms before where there's both tax professionals and wealth management professionals under the same roof, and you still need good relationships. You still need financial professionals who understand about taxes to know when to ask the questions, to know when to have those collaborative relationships. I mean, I've seen within the same firm those different departments just run completely foreign to each other. And so having someone on your team isn't a magic solution. So you've got to start with your own education, understanding, and being willing to improve that. The next thing I would say is that where I'm seeing most advisors have the best success is when they have an outside professional that they collaborate with. And that might sound somewhat self-serving because that's what I do, but I serve a tiny fraction of the industry, and I only can serve a tiny fraction of the industry. I'm not asking for everyone to come sign up with me. I mean that for other advisors who work with CPAs completely unrelated to myself, but the ones who are taking the time to build positive and proactive relationships, this becomes a great client service. It improves the quality of the experience, becomes a referral source. So that, I think, is the next path to explore. And we've already touched on that. There's challenges in that because it's tough to find CPAs who are taking on new clients. If a firm is to the size or to the point where they want to look at bringing taxes in-house, I get a lot of questions about, hey, should I go buy a tax practice? My very first recommendation is you need to find someone who's done that, preferably multiple people who've done that, and talk to them about their experience. Because I hear countless advisors who think that's a great idea. I meet fewer advisors who've done it and still think it's a good idea. They're out there. I'm not saying across the board this is a bad idea. I definitely know advisors who have acquired tax practices or have brought tax professionals onto their team, and in the end, it's turned into a good experience for them. But almost without exception, they all talk about how much harder it was out of the gate than they expected because they hadn't talked to anybody about it. They just went in, oh, geez, hey, there's a tax practice in my town for sale. I'll just buy it. It'll seamlessly fit in with what I'm already doing. It's no big deal. And it turns out if you don't know what you're getting into, it is a bit of a big deal from a compliance standpoint, from a risk standpoint, from just a business model standpoint. So if that's something you're seriously considering, find people who have done it. I've interviewed several people on my podcast talking about their experiences. I always try to bring someone to our conference that can speak from that place because I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you what it's like to be a financial advisor and acquire a tax practice and what that integration feels like. That's just an area you've got to talk to somebody who has firsthand experience in how that works. But whether you have somebody in-house, you have a third party that you partner with, you still have to be intentional about building those relationships and having a process, or you won't even having someone on your team won't create the outcomes you want if you're not intentionally working on that.
Yeah, that is such a good point. And I would say even as a tax professional, I'm leery of buying another tax practice, right? because it's like, all the things that can go wrong, and just our industry is really funky. And so that's really good advice of finding people who have done it successfully, what worked, what didn't work. Another thing that where I've seen it work is really where the advisor, instead of just purchasing a tax practice, it's really like partnering with the CPA, where the CPA is going to be driving things. And so, or an EA, experienced tax professional, where they're really going to be driving that part of the practice. And that for a lot of them, it's hard to add a lot of value in the tax work by itself, just the compliance piece alone. And so being able to collaboratively have that relationship with the tax professionals, so it's more incentivizing to them in terms of bringing planning opportunities, being able to bring in, more one-stop shop. That's where I've seen some people be successful with it, is really not where you're just overseeing employee level people on the tax preparation side, but you have an actual tax professional partner, either, like externally organizationally, or, in one house. I think that can really incentivize behavior. So for people, what have you been seeing people have problems with or go wrong in terms of trying to implement this in their practice, or just kind of common red flags or things that you wish every advisor, knew going into starting to try to do tax planning or partnering with, tax professionals?
Getting the actual tax returns seems to be not that that's the be all end all. That seems to be a pretty good indication of a financial advisor's commitment to really taking this seriously. Because
Mm-hmm.
what I often see is that a financial advisor, whether they're hearing questions and complaints from their clients, they're seeing those pain points, they're seeing their planning recommendations not getting reported correctly, and so they recognize the need and the value of being involved in taxes, but then they want a really quick fix. They want someone who can do the tax work for them. They want a piece of software that's going to magically tell them all the tax planning answers. And even though that's not how they treat any other area of their financial planning practice, for some reason, people still have this delusion that on taxes, there's an easy answer out there somewhere. So the other thing I would really encourage everyone to just embrace and lean into is that tax planning, tax preparation, tax compliance, anything tax related is work. There are more efficient ways to do this. There are more effective ways to do this, but it is going to take work. There's even some great software tools out there, and there's becoming more and more. I'm not opposed to those, but you can't sign up for whatever the fanciest software, shiniest object is. I know a lot of the people who've created those, and I've talked to them. I talk to them regularly. They'll tell you that every good tool needs a good operator. So don't sign up for a piece of software thinking it's going to solve all your problems if you aren't also committed to getting the tax returns, setting up a process, training your team, making sure that there's a way for you to see that through and deliver value. And then I think this is true of just about any topic in life, but then it's getting in the reps and doing the hands-on practice. So getting those tax returns, if you're going to use a piece of software, great, run the returns through that software. And then I still love printing things out and physically holding them. I think there's a lot of value and learning that comes from that. So then it's printing those tax returns, going out and going out of the gate. You should be going page by page through every page of that tax return, even if it's 100 pages long. Now, you mentioned it before, if you have a niche and you specialize in a certain type of clients, you're going to be able to quickly narrow down and realize, hey, there's really only these few that I need to pay real close attention to, or a lot of this I can have a team member just verify with what we have in the CRM. But when you start, you're learning something new. So make sure you take the time to get those reps in, to put in the practice, so that you can come back to your clients and say, hey, this is an area that we are really focused on expanding the value we deliver to you. And we're putting in the time, we're putting in the investment. We're really excited to show you what that's going to look like in the future.
Yeah. And I think another big point is it's not like you have to roll this out to every client at once, right? It's like pick the situations that are simpler and the ones where you can feel more confident with the level of self-education that you've done. Get those reps in, like you said, get used to reading tax returns and knowing how to read them to look for the opportunities.
Mhm.
And then over time, you can just expand to doing more complex things. And honestly, a big piece of advice that I would have is if you have a good CPA or tax professional relationship in your life, just say, hey, can we just do consulting agreements from time to time? I want to learn how to do this, or, I have this situation that I'm not sure about. Can I pay you for a half hour of your time to explain it to me? And then you'll get to use that knowledge for the rest of your client base that might have similar situations, right? Like that's what I would be doing is if you're getting into sticky situations and you feel like the self-education isn't strong enough, or you're getting into something you're concerned about what you're going to do, find another tax professional. And it doesn't even have to be that person's tax professional. It can just be a CPA that you have a close relationship with, who's willing to do consulting engagements with you to help you get better at this. But I think in the last couple of minutes that we have left, I'd love to hear a little more about what you do with RTS and some of the tools and things that you have available for advisors who are interested in this. If you could speak to that a little bit, Steven.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. So again, I mean, we created retirement tax services to help specifically advisors with tax planning. And so it kind of runs in two different streams. We have education resources and content that we provide to advisors to help them do more. So this looks like monthly newsletters that have handouts and reference guides that advisors can use with clients. So we've recorded a couple of courses, including specifically on how to review a tax return and how to be looking for planning opportunities. We go through, and for the members in our community, we have a forum where we're answering questions. These aren't client-specific questions because that's really tough to scale, but we're giving people access to a community of other people who are doing these things, and then a chance to reach out to a CPA and learn along the way. And so we're seeing just great results from advisors who are, it's advisors who are trying to learn new things, as well as advisors who I mean, some of them are incredible at tax planning already, but there, as you know, the rules change so often. They get updated, they get adjusted. That we also have a lot of advisors who are really savvy on tax planning, who just want it to be simpler than going to Google and trying to sort through 100 million results. And so that's kind of one side of what we do. Where we're seeing the most interest and the most growth is where we partner with financial advisors so that our team is doing hands-on tax preparation and tax planning. And so these are advisors who are already doing some level of taxes in their firm. So they're not starting from square one. I've never even thought about taxes. But then we come in and we be that partner for them so that when they're recommending a Roth conversion, or they're trying to do qualified charitable distributions, or whatever it might be, that they know they have a partner, they have a CPA team that at tax time isn't going to say, oh, geez, your CPA really, or your advisor really screwed this up. You have to pay more taxes because of this Roth thing. Wow, geez, what a bad idea that was. And so that's where, I mean, and this really speaks to the conversation we've been having of it. It's hard to find people who have that capacity. And this is our sole focus. And so as we build our team, as we actively recruit, we're looking for team members who can fit into that and help build this collaborative relationship.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, so for people who are interested, wherever you're listening to this, somewhere nearby, there will be links to how to get in touch with Steven and his team over at RTS to learn more about what they're doing for advisors. And then I know I have a lot of tax professionals that listen to my stuff too. So definitely check out what Steven's doing if you're a fellow tax professional and interested in kind of what his firm's building. But thank you again for joining me today. This is a really great episode. And for advisors always looking for more feedback, if there's other topics that you would like included on the show, or if you have specific tax questions or situations that you'd like us to cover on the show in the future. So thanks again for joining me, Steven.